You are getting everything done, but you are bracing for a collapse that never quite arrives. On the outside, you look disciplined. You look like someone who has their life together, someone who handles the pressure better than most. But internally, there is a silent, chronic humming, a vibration of urgency that does not shut off when the laptop closes or the lights go out. It is not that you are failing. It is that you are functioning while waiting for the other shoe to drop. You tell yourself you just have a high motor. You tell yourself that this is just what it takes to succeed. But if you are honest, the productivity does not feel like ambition anymore. It feels like a survival strategy. This is not a video about time management or hacks to get more done. This is about why, for you, staying busy has become the only way to feel safe. The internal script usually sounds reasonable. If I can just get ahead of the emails, I will relax. If I finish this project by Thursday, the weight will lift. I should be able to handle this. I have handled more before. But notice what happens when you actually finish. The relief lasts for maybe 10 minutes. Then the mind immediately scans the horizon for the next threat, the next task, the next potential failure. You are not working toward a goal. You are working to outrun an underlying sensation of unpredictability. You have convinced yourself that as long as you are moving, you are invulnerable. As long as you are producing, you are justified in taking up space. Why does slowing down feel uncomfortable even when nothing is urgent? When you try to rest, it does not feel like recovery. It feels like exposure. The moment the momentum stops, the volume on your internal static turns up. You start to feel the exhaustion you have been suppressing, and that exhaustion feels dangerous. It feels like a weakness that might stay forever if you let it in. So you pick the phone back up. You check the calendar. You find a problem to solve. This is the control-based productivity loop. Your mind has identified doing as its primary defense mechanism. Stress is not a byproduct of your work. It is the fuel you use to keep the defense system running. You tolerate the stress because, paradoxically, the stress feels safer than the void of sitting still. In the stress, you know who you are. In the stillness, you have to face the person who is tired. To maintain this, you have built an identity shield. For you have started to describe your survival tactics as personality traits. I am just someone who pushes through. I work best under pressure. Rest makes me lazy. These statements are not truths. They are guards. They protect you from having to confront how deeply depleted you actually are. By framing your inability to stop as a work ethic, you turn a symptom of the loop into a badge of honor. The shield reframes the effort of survival as the essence of your character. It makes the pattern very hard to question, because if you stop pushing, you fear you will lose the very things that make you valuable. Why does finishing work rarely reduce the pressure? At the core of this pattern is a specific hidden fear: the loss of momentum. To your nervous system, momentum is a shield. If you are moving fast enough, the things you are afraid of, being perceived as unreliable, falling behind, becoming forgettable, cannot catch you. Slowing down is read by your brain as becoming vulnerable. This is why productivity strategies usually fail people operating in this loop. They offer better ways to manage tasks, but do not address why the tasks feel like the only thing keeping everything stable. You do not need a better calendar. You need to understand why your mind decided that being on is the only way to stay okay. There is a realization that tends to feel quite cold when you first encounter it. Most of what you call discipline is actually a reaction to pressure. If your productivity requires a constant state of internal tension to function, it is not ambition. It is avoidance. Being productive is not the problem. That feeling unsafe without productivity is you have tied your worth to your endurance. You believe your value is found in how much you can handle before you break. But endurance is a finite resource, and using it as a daily operating system is like running a car engine in the red zone just to keep the heater on. Your mind is not trying to burn you out. It is not trying to make you miserable. It chose this path because at some point it decided that constant output was the most reliable way to keep you safe from disappointment and failure. It is a defensive adaptation. It is doing its job. Your mind chose safety. This is what that safety looks like from the inside. What if the stress is not coming from the work itself? Consider the possibility that the work is not causing the stress.
Consider that the stress is a pre-existing condition you are trying to solve by working. When you approach your day from this perspective, the exhaustion looks different. It is not that you did too much. It is that you were doing everything while bracing.
It is the bracing that accumulates, not just the tasks. Humans often mistake their defensive systems for their personality. We see the walls we have built to survive, and we think, this is who I am. We see the speed at which we operate to avoid our fears, and we think, this is my drive. But there is a difference between productivity that comes from curiosity and productivity that comes from a need to stabilize your environment. There is a difference between working because something interests you and working because stillness feels like a threat. The most people never stop to ask which version of themselves is currently holding the pen, not because they lack the intelligence to ask, but because the defensive system is designed, in part, to prevent the question from arising. If you slow down, something uncomfortable might surface. The system has learned that, so it keeps generating urgency. It keeps pointing to the next task, not to help you succeed, to keep you protected. You do not need to change anything today. The next time you feel that pull to do one more thing, not because it is urgent, but because stillness produces a strange, sourceless unease, just observe it. Notice that your mind is attempting to protect you. Notice that it has interpreted stillness as risk. Notice when productivity becomes pressure management rather than actual work. That awareness, by itself, begins to alter how the loop operates. It creates a small gap between the feeling of pressure and the automatic response to it. And in that gap, something shifts. Not dramatically, not immediately, but the loop becomes slightly less invisible. The pattern was never the problem. The pattern protected something before it began limiting something. That is not a judgment. That is simply what patterns do. You are reacting, not failing.